Now, just a little background to catch everybody up, because I know we have some new people on here. We've been doing these webinars for just over a year now. We started doing these consistently when the pandemic hit last year. And so the WhyTry organization that Cory and I represent is a social emotional learning and a resilience organization. And we've been doing this as an organization for about 18 years. And we have, in the process, developed a really incredible kind of network of community members and family members that are in the world of education and mental health and corrections. And so when the pandemic hit and it kind of stopped all of our in-person events, which is really where we, build out our network and our community, we realized that a great way to stay in touch would be to start doing these webinars. And so that was how these began. We've done over 40 of them now. We've had some incredible experts, field experts, research experts on, and it's just been a really fun way to build this network out, to get to know some of you all, to meet new people, and to really continue a discussion about things that we feel really passionate about. And so today our message is going to be a little more focused on our WhyTry approach to resilience and to using SEL to motivate kids. And so our panelists are going to be me and Cory today. So let me officially introduce us, and then we'll get right into the discussion. So first, I will introduce my colleague, Cory Anderson. Cory has spent nearly 2 decades as an educator, beginning as a teacher and then as an administrator. He's been an assistant principal at a middle school, and he's served as a principal of 2 different elementary schools. He pioneered and started one of 2 public STEM programs in the state of Utah, and he helped consult with the State Office of Education on creating STEM standards for schools that would eventually be adopted by the STEM Action Center. Also, during his tenure as an elementary school principal, Cory oversaw behavioral units and led his school in implementing social and emotional programs and STEM activities. Cory joined the WhyTry organization in 2019 as a trainer and director of curriculum development after using its social and emotional tools for close to 10 years in his administrative duties. Welcome, Cory.
Welcome. Good day.
We're so glad to have you on.
Thank you.
And then myself, I am Jason Johnson. My background is I'm a school psych. I came from the world of public ed. I came over about 6 years ago. My area of expertise has historically been resilience. That was my focus all the way back into grad school. I've been published on the topic of adolescent resilience. And when I crossed paths with the WhyTry organizations about 6 years ago, it became just kind of a real quick organic relationship that formed. And so it's been really fun. Being here has given me the opportunity to be able to collaborate and build out my network of colleagues now across the nation and even into a global setting. And it's just been such a great opportunity to do this. So today, I want to get right into it. We're gonna jump right into the topic at hand, which is discussing tools and strategies and ideas for both fostering resilience and motivating our students. And I think that's kind of the common thread that connects us all and has us all here. So what I think I want to do, I'm going to jump right into showing our pulling the curtain back and showing our toolkit, which is an online toolkit. And this, I think, highlights how we organize our approach to teaching kids specific strategies for resilience. There we go. So we follow a thing that we call the WhyTry approach. And the WhyTry approach is kind of a specific plan for delivering these concepts. Sorry, I'm just going to spotlight myself here. There we go. So when you look at our toolkit, and I scrolled down here, you can see that our approach is organized. I'm going to have you just look at the column on the far left and the far right. And one of the things that we feel very strongly about is that any SEL or resilience approach needs to have some organization and intentionality, and you need to have a good, not just good content that you're delivering, but you also need to have a good set of competencies or kind of like ground rules for how you're going to deliver it. And that's really what makes up our approach to Fidelity, is that combination of delivering the content with the competencies. And we're going to do a deeper dive into one of our learning units a little bit later to kind of show you how we do that. But I want to give you an overview of that idea of content combined with competencies. So I've got a couple slides here that I will share. There we go. And so this kind of highlights how we organize it. So I mentioned we have this thing we call the WhyTry approach, and it is this it's this outline that we consider the key to successful outcomes. And so the two parts, as I mentioned, are your program content and your facilitator competencies. So the content is what you do, and the competencies are how you do it. Now, when we look at these kind of individually, the content should include, some specific key components. Our specific approach to content is this. We use visual metaphors that Cory is going to talk about in a minute, kind of the power of how visual metaphors can really help effectively teach at a deep level. We like to use learning activities, music resources, video media, digital tools like PowerPoint or Keynote. Resilience boosters can be any combination of activities or journal prompts that help reinforce and boost your key concepts or your secondary concepts. So if you're teaching a specific concept through some type of activity, you want some booster to follow up after to help kind of reiterate that. And then we use stories and examples. We call this overall kind of a multi-sensory approach to our content. So that's on the content side. And I'm going to demonstrate in a little bit what some of this looks like, as well as Cory will in some of his teaching as well. The other half is competencies, and the competencies represent how we deliver. And we use the term frequently intentionality, and it really does, I think, matter when it comes to social emotional learning or resilience. We have all these ideas that are quote unquote best practices. Well, they're best practices for a reason, because they've been proven to have some effectiveness. And so what we've done is, for our organizational approach with our material, we've identified our list of specific competencies to help improve the delivery. And so for the WhyTry model or approach to exist, it needs to include these. So here's some examples. Surrendering the one up is a thing we've talked about in the past, but it's a relationship-based approach to delivery, where we're always trying to make sure that we are communicating to the kiddos that we're teaching that they have value, that they have worth, with some intentionality there. Framing a lesson involves how we set something up before we deliver it. A lot of times the buy-in we create before we deliver an idea, whether it's intervention or curriculum, can impact whether or not our kids are going to receive it. Activity implementation is how we bring kind of an experiential piece to it. Video and other media, including music, represents a thing we call generational relevance, where we really want to try to speak and communicate to our kids through mediums that they're used to and that resonate with them. Storytelling is a way to make our message personal and kind of connect it to the lives directly of our kiddos. Questions and processing, that's kind of the sacred space where you can connect something you just did directly to the lives of the people that we're working with. So if I do an activity with some kids and the purpose of the activity is to teach or illustrate a key concept and help them apply it to their life, the way I have to get to that point is usually going to come through that space of questions and processing. State changes is another thing. Cory's going to talk about that today as well. But state changes is kind of a specific set of strategies to try to help maintain the attention of the individuals that we're delivering our material to. Resilient listening is kind of this concept of deep listening where we really try to recognize what's going on inside of the individuals that we are teaching. And when we understand them better through good, resilient, and compassionate listening, then I think it allows us to meet them on their where they're at a little more effectively. And then flexibility, that's kind of our most advanced level competency. And that's the ability to really adjust on the fly according to the needs of the students or the clients that we're working with. And so all of that kind of comes together to make what we call the WhyTry approach. So I'm going to throw it over to Cory now, and we're going to have Cory talk specifically about a couple of the competencies that make up our approach. And then after he goes through those, it's going to come back to me, and I'm going to dig into some of the content and kind of show you, hopefully bring it all together and give you all some good examples of hopefully some things you can take back into your classrooms and offices. So Cory, you're up. Go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. I'm excited to be here. You know, for those of you who are regular listeners to the webinars, then you guys know Jason really well, and he's natural and at home at this. I only come on once in a while, and I'm still nervous, but I'll still do the best I can. Here we go. I'm excited to be here. I love doing these specific webinars where we just kind of hone in a little bit and show examples of our approach. Every time we present one of these webinars, we select different parts of either our content or different parts of our competencies and just highlight them so that you guys have, you know, some access to see what those look like. And whether or not you use the WhyTry curriculum, that still gives you the ability to kind of reflect on our approach and maybe incorporate it into your own practice, whether you're using our specific materials or not. So today, two of those approaches or two of those pieces that we're going to concentrate on are visual metaphors and state changes. So I'm going to share a little bit about each of those. And then like Jason said, he's going to kind of give an example of what that looks like. So excited to see that. Okay, so here we go. The first thing I want to talk about are visual metaphors. I love visual metaphors, and we're going to do an activity. I hope you're ready for this. So to kind of introduce this idea of visual metaphors and why they're so powerful, I want to do a quick activity with you. I'm about to go to another screen. I'm going to show you a picture. And as you see this picture, I'm going to give you approximately 10 seconds. And in that 10 seconds, I want you to count how many animals you can see. Ready? Go. Okay. How many did you come up with? Go ahead in the chat window. I'm interested. How many did you guys come up with? Goodness gracious. That's quite a number. I'm sure some of you are like, are you sure? Okay, so you can see there's quite a range there. Now what I'd like you to do is this. Based on what you can remember, what animals did you see? Like some of you were probably just like quickly looking and scanning and counting. What animals can you remember seeing? And as you type them, the others, I want you to think to yourself, goodness gracious, was there really an alligator or an elephant or a gorilla or a grasshopper, right? So take a look at everybody's answers. A whale, a bear, a turtle, a starfish. I don't know if I saw all those things. So I want you to kind of pinpoint a few of the animals that you didn't see, and I want you to see if you can now see them. Are you ready? Take a second look. Can you see the horse? Can you see the peacock? Can you see the tiger? Ooh, a kangaroo. Nice. Yeah, the python. What about the sloth? Can anybody see the sloth? Left cheekbone. Nice job there, LaShonda. That's right. How about the snail? Can you see a snail in there? And where is it? Left eye. That's correct, Joanna. Nice job. Nice job. Totally correct. Kind of a fun picture, right? Before we go and process this a little bit, I have another activity. Are you ready? I'm going to show you another picture, and it's just going to be a quick glance, but I'm interested in the quick glance at the picture. I want you to summarize what's going on. What's going on in this picture? Okay, what is this a picture of? I'm only going to give you about maybe 3 to 5 seconds. You ready? The question is, what's this a picture of? Okay, guys, what was it a picture of? A dining car, right? Yeah, it's a diner. It's a cafe. Good job. I appreciate your answer. You know, the interesting thing about that picture, I do have to tell you that I have kind of a macabre sense of humor. I'm really into kind of some nerdy stuff and a little darker, I have to say. But this picture actually is quite a disturbing picture. And I think the more you look at it, the more disturbed you'll become. So as you're looking at it, I want you to try to look for evidence that there's more going on here than meets the eye, that there's more going on here than meets the eye. If you see something that's a little, you know, underhanded or darker than perhaps you first realized, share. Okay, the blind man is reading. Nice job. I got to tell you, Joanna, I didn't even see that one. And I've looked at this picture a whole bunch. Nice one. Yeah, face in the mug, the woman pulling the kid. But what is the woman pulling the kid with? Yeah, that knife, that doesn't look like just a nice, yummy, you know, cherry pie. Yeah, you guys got it. Yeah, it's like an octopus hand. Nasty. Great ideas there, guys. Eyeball on the saucer. Oh my gosh, I didn't see that either in fingers. This is dark. I don't think I can use this again now that I'm more aware of what's in the picture. Oh, now I'm in trouble. Notice the that creature down underneath the behind the waitress. The hand on the restroom sign. Yeah, lots going on. Okay, so notice the customer sitting at the bar, the second one back. I think he has some sort of like squid thing coming out of his face. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, lots going on. Okay, guys. You guys get the idea. A little simple activity. You thought it was a huge stash. Maybe that's a huge stash. that things need some grooming if that's the case. Okay, guys, let's look a little deeper. Let's take this activity and let's talk about what that has to do with metaphors. Okay. To do that, let me ask you, what happened the longer you looked at the picture? What happened the longer you looked at the picture? You became more focused. You saw more things, more details. Your perception about it changed. I like that, Casey. Thank you. You saw more. Yeah, you noticed more for sure. Okay, let me ask you this then. What helped you to be able to see more than what it first appeared to be? How did you start to see more? Okay, time, context. Okay, good. Others pointed things out to you. I framed it that way. Yeah, I love that you used one of our terms. You started to learn what to look for, time to process the image. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, what about this? Think of something that you didn't notice in one of the pictures, until somebody else brought it up in the chat window. Why do you think you didn't notice that aspect of the picture? Like, even after I showed you the second time and you had longer to look at it, why do you think you didn't notice it the first time around? Okay, there was a lot going on, a different point of view, focused on another part of the picture. Okay, good. Perspective, I agree. All great answers, guys. Zoom fatigue. I hear you, Karen. It's like, I'll let somebody else do this. Good stuff. Okay, let's bring it home. What does this activity have to do with visual metaphors? How do these connect? What are your thoughts? What do these two activities have to do with visual metaphors? Okay, we see what we want to see. Gay, I definitely, I can resonate with that based on your experiences and what your perception is, you see stuff that relates to you, that you would see. It's not always what it seems to be. Good. Another set of eyes. Others can influence the way we see and think. Great, interesting ideas. Perception creates reality. Time and perspective helps us understand things. Sarah, that one's really interesting. We tend to not look too deeply at first. Good stuff, guys. So keep that in mind. We absolutely love using visual metaphors as a part of the WhyTry approach and the WhyTry curriculum. We have found that the visual metaphor is perhaps one of the most powerful and important tools that we can use when discussing social and emotional learning. I was recently working with a bunch of school counselors that consistently brought up the power of using metaphors with their students and how it resonated with them and how they were able to have conversations with them that perhaps you wouldn't have been able to have before without using the visual metaphors. Our curriculum is built upon close to 20 visual metaphors, and we teach some very powerful concepts through them. And we feel like it is something that is very hallmark of WhyTry, right? Like, if you are using WhyTry, then you are using visual metaphors. You certainly can use visual metaphors and not use WhyTry, but you know, if you're using our curriculum, that is going to be a central piece of what we do. Let me ask you, with your own experience, well, before I go to the benefits, let me give you an example of a visual metaphor. You know, here's an example of one of our visual metaphors. One of our visual metaphors that we like to use within the WhyTry program is what we call lift the weight. And we like to piggyback off the idea of the metaphor that a weightlifter will use resistance to build muscle, right? So a weightlifter, in order to be able to build muscle and lift more and more, they have to start off with a little bit of resistance. And as they can lift that resistance, they add a little more and they get stronger and stronger. Well, the students we work with, they have resistance in their life as well. And as they can learn to lift that resistance, they become stronger and stronger. They start off with a little bit of resistance, and the more that they can lift, the stronger they become. That resistance looks like expectations, right? Students that we work with, they all have expectations at home with their parents, at school, in their communities, and all of those expectations, rules and laws, self-discipline, routines, that's a form of resistance. And if they can learn to lift that, that builds muscle for the future to take on more and more responsibility. Or if they choose to not lift that resistance, which you can see the right side of this metaphor is this weightlifter is not very strong, and that's because he's choosing not to lift that resistance. It actually makes him weaker. And the students we work with, if they choose not to lift that resistance by either breaking rules or refusing to do certain work or responsibilities, then in reality, they're not going to have the muscle or the ability to lift that resistance in the future. So we love to use metaphors like this to teach important concepts and principles to the students that we work with. So let me come back here. In your own practice, either through your own use of metaphors with students or in your interaction with metaphors, what do you perceive as the possible benefits of using visual metaphors with students? What are some of the benefits of using visual metaphors with students? James, saw your suggestion there. Great suggestion. What are some of the benefits that you guys could think of? To see outside the box, stimulate conversation, new ideas, get students thinking deeper. I like it. Engaging, especially for struggling readers. It's flexible. I like that too. Very good. It can be very relevant for sure. Special ed students might be able to tap into an idea easier. We'll talk about why. Great suggestions there, guys. So let me dive into that. You know, one of the great benefits is that it creates a connection between an abstract idea with something more concrete. And this makes it a lot easier to understand. A lot of the things and the skills that we teach through social emotional learning, they're abstract ideas, right? Like teaching that actions have consequences, or that negative labels can take away opportunities, or that choosing negative defense mechanisms in any situation are going to take away freedoms. Like all of those ideas, those are abstract concepts that for a young mind can be hard to fully understand. But when we start linking them with concrete objects or simple ideas, then they can make connections they weren't able to make before. Also, based on learner readiness, a person will learn something from a metaphor while another person will learn even more. As you use metaphors with your students, you will find that some of them grasp it at a very simple level. And that's okay, because based on their own understanding and experience, they're kind of just entering into the metaphor. And then you'll have others that will like start peeling away layers like an onion and be like, oh, and you know what? This means that. And I can see how this could represent that. And they will even bring up things that you would have never thought of, but it resonates with them and it becomes very powerful for them, and very motivating. Then they feel like they've discovered something about themselves. And so they grab onto that, and it can be very meaningful. It can reach individuals who are only visual, or who are specifically visual learners. I mean, we know that one of the modes of learning is to learn visually, and a visual metaphor taps into that idea. One of the most powerful parts of a visual metaphor is that it invites the learner to see themselves in the metaphor and apply it to their own life. The moment you put up a metaphor, it's very difficult to not take yourself and imagine yourself in that metaphor and where you fall in that metaphor, whether it's using our reality ride metaphor, which is a roller coaster, or the motivation formula, or lifting the weight, whatever it is. It's hard to not discuss and learn about it and immediately put yourself in the metaphor. The concept definitely becomes more memorable, right? Like if you use metaphors with students as they go throughout their life, when that object comes up in their daily routine or weekly routine, it's hard for that to not trigger, the discussions you've had about those weights, or about that shield, or about that, whatever it is that you use as a metaphor. And then quite frankly, it can just increase interest in the topic. It really can. It's more interesting to discuss certain aspects of social emotional learning through a metaphor than it would be, just alone all by itself. It also develops critical thinking skills. I don't think that can be overstated either. So those are some of the things. And for those of you who use WhyTry, you know that we use lots of visual metaphors. Reality Ride is famous as it's one of our our first metaphors that we go over of a roller coaster, and we teach that actions have consequences. Lifting the weight is always answering that question, wait, why do we have to do this? In our Resilience for Youth program, we have a metaphor that's based on switches and learning how to flip the switch, which is learning how to see things a little differently, a little more clearly in any given situation. So we love using metaphors. If you are not currently a WhyTry user, I highly recommend you explore the idea of using metaphors in your instruction. The other thing I wanted to talk about before Jason jumps in and does some demo for us is state changes. State changes is one of our facilitator competencies. Once again, facilitator competencies, that's how we do it. That's how we deliver curriculum. And, you know, state changes is all about how to keep students engaged by switching their sensory focus. Let me start this off by giving you guys a non-example. Are you ready? Let me make sure I shared the sound with you. Share sound. Here we go. This is a non-example of what a state change looks like.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? A tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which, anyone, raised or lowered? Raised tariffs.
Have you ever felt like
to
this in a
collect more
class?
revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone know the effects?
Hopefully not in this webinar.
It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class? Anyone?
Okay, I'll spare us. I'm not going to go to the slobbering kid on this desk. I don't want to gross you guys out. You know, what a classic movie, right? This thing just resonates with all of us. And I love this movie, but this specific clip is so right on in so many ways. All of us have been in that class, either all the way from grade school to college, where you're just like, you're in a daze because of just the monotony of the voice. And it's just like, you know, it puts you to sleep. So state changes is all about the technique of keeping your students engaged by switching their sensory focus. Why do we need state changes? Well, I'm sure all of you have heard that, you know, a kid's attention span is their age times 2 in minutes, right? So for every year a kid has been alive, they can give about 2 minutes of attention span. So an 18-year-old, 2 or 3 is actually what they say. So, you know, an 18-year-old could go 36, anywhere from 36 to, I can't do the math that fast, 36 to 54 minutes. Whereas, you know, a 6-year-old might be able to go 12 to 18 minutes max, depending. I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is, but I do see a lot of truth to it. When I was a principal, you know, I had been a teacher. I had taught all the way from 5th grade up to high school. And then I became an elementary school principal. And one of the scariest moments was going into a kindergarten class and realizing, holy smokes, I've only got these kids for like 6 minutes, and then I better do some sort of state change. Otherwise, I am losing the entire room, right? So there is definitely truth to it. But you know, no matter how great the content, no matter how important or great the content, you have to be aware of learner readiness. And to help you reflect on that, I'm not going to take a lot of time to discuss this because I want to leave Jason time, but think to yourself, what does it look like when you've lost a child's attention? What does it look like? You know what it looks like, and you need to be aware of that when you are delivering curriculum. It's very important. You know, at any given moment, you're always going to have in a classroom, at least, you're always going to have a student or two that, you know, they lose focus. But you really need to be cognizant if you are having a group of students that are losing focus and their attention spans going. And so state changes it's a skill. It's a skill that definitely takes some working out. We like to compare state changes to riding a wave. How many of you have caught a wave before? And how would you describe it? What does it feel like to catch a wave? Has anybody had that experience? In the chat window, if you have, just write what it feels like the moment you catch a wave. I caught my first wave about 12 years ago. I had never been a surfer. I was at the beach and I had a bodyboard. And I remember swimming out there with the bodyboard. And, I kept missing these waves. And then all of a sudden, I just hit the right moment. And it was one of the most amazing moments of my life, right? Like I was like, holy smokes, the power behind this is incredible. And before I knew it, I was just skipping across the top of the water and onto the beach. That was pretty exciting. State changes is very much like that, right? When you know that you have your students with you, both you and your students have a similar experience where you feel like you're riding a wave. You're in the lesson, they are in the lesson, they are taking things from it and they are feeling it. And by the way, one of the great things about social emotional learning is that the emotion that comes from self-discovery in social emotional learning is a real thing. It's a rush, just like riding a wave. And so that is one of the benefits of it. But no matter how great that wave is, eventually it will fizzle out. And you have to go catch another one. And you need to be aware of that principle. You can catch a wave with your students. You can run an activity with your students, but eventually, no matter how good that activity is, it is going to fizzle out and you need to move to something else, whether that's using video and media, whether that's moving to a discussion and questions and processing, or switching back to the metaphor. There are so many different ways to do state changes. The biggest thing is being aware of it, right? Being aware of it. Moving forward. So I guess my last words on state changes is this. Within the WhyTry program, the WhyTry program is built for state changes. You saw Jason share that we use metaphors and videos and activities and music and boosters and all of these different things so that you can switch from one to the next to create a very dynamic classroom. And you do that very intentionally, and you keep an eye on what's going on so that you can create those state changes. Not an easy thing to do. It is definitely more advanced. But the more you're aware of it, the better you will be at it. And then at the same time, every teacher, every educator has a few tips or has a few tricks up their sleeve for creating state changes regardless. And those can look very different. So beyond the WhyTry program and what we provide, just finding clever ways to change it up with your kids can go a long ways, all the way from giving high fives to using hacky sacks or cush balls to call on students, changing where you are in the class in your position, just taking a stretch break, using lighting in different ways, having your students suddenly reteach concepts to someone next by, an elbow partner, using sound effects and music, going outside and exchanging your environment. All of those things are great ways to create a state change if it's not already embedded within the curriculum. But the most important thing with state changes is awareness and being aware of your learners and their readiness towards your content. So with that in mind, I am pitching it back to you, Jason, and deliver the goods.
Wow. Thank you, Cory. Great job. That was fun. I appreciate that. And by the way, super meta of you to use a metaphor to teach about metaphors. That's good stuff.
I'm a deep thinker.
I love it. All right. So I am going to I'm going to share some slides here. And what I want to do now is try to put some of the stuff that Cory shared into action here by showing you some of our content. So we just talked at the beginning, talked about kind of content versus versus competencies and how they work together. Cory highlighted some of our competencies. I'm going to show some of the content now, but also hopefully try to tie that into the competencies that Cory shared. So to start off with, we're going to go into one of my favorite learning units. And this is a learning unit that I've had a lot of educators reach out to me and communicate that this has been a really helpful learning unit over the past little while that they've been teaching. It seems to be really resonating with kids. And I think there's a lot going on right now, as you'll see, that makes this really applicable to kids' lives. So this is a learning unit we call Climbing Out, and it is built around this image here. So we just talked about the power of visual metaphors, and we're going to teach through one right here. I'm going to walk you through kind of a quick run through of this particular one. And then, by the way, at the end of this, I am going to demonstrate using an activity to help further teach the metaphor. And as a teaser to keep you around, the activity will include fire and a flammable liquid. I'm just going to put that out there, and I'm going to be doing it live. So I want everybody to take a look at this image and just tell me what you see. Tell me what the image speaks to you. There's not a right or wrong answer to this right now. I just want to know what you see looking at this right now, what message is being communicated to you as you take a look at this image. Go ahead and respond in the chat tool. Yeah, so we see some hot water. James points out. Looks like a crab is really desperate to get out of that. Some of you are seeing crabs pulling the one at the top back in the form of teamwork. And some of you may be seeing a crab at the top trying to pull some of the other ones back in or back out. This image represents a concept that's kind of common in the world of psychology, but we found it really useful to teach because it's so applicable, especially when you're trying to help kids be more resilient. This represents this concept called the crab mentality. And the great ideas coming in, by the way. Thank you. The crab mentality is this concept where oftentimes, we're all in different groups throughout our life. We have our school group and our friend group and maybe our neighborhood group and our family group. And the crab mentality is when members of the group start doing things to prevent and halt progress of one another. And so in this case, the crab there at the top is trying to get out and the other ones are grabbing it and pulling it back in. And it's making it difficult for it to get out. Now, to prove that this isn't a fake thing, I have actual video of the crab effect. I'll show you, or the crab mentality here, that I'll share with you. This is some cell phone footage of some crabs in a bucket. There we go. And you're gonna see the crab mentality happening in real life. I'm gonna jump to about here. There we go. This crab is trying to get out, and the other two jump over and grab it. Pull it right back down every time it climbs up. Have you ever felt like that in life? Have you ever felt like there were forces that were just trying to pull you back whenever you try to get out of a situation? Stop the video there. If you have, then you've experienced what it's like when we're surrounded by individuals that have that crab mentality. So let's go back to my slide. And now I want to show you a little bit how we can process through a simple image like this. But as Cory mentioned, and that's one of the things I love about visual metaphors in particular, is that you can dig into them deeper and deeper and start pulling more and more meaning out of them the deeper you go. And I always do this. I immediately start kind of imagining how this applies to me. So we've explained the overall concept. Crabs tend to pull each other back into a bucket, and the same thing can happen in life. So tell me a little bit about your kiddos now. Tell me, what are some of the metaphoric pots that the kids that you're working with, the clients you're serving, are stuck in right now? What are some of their pots or some of their buckets? Type it into the chat tool. So it could be the neighborhood that they're in. It could be repetition of poor grades, getting so far behind. How am I ever going to get out of this? It might be that social media cycle, peer pressure. We're going to come back to that one. Generational poverty. It could be family challenges, youth group of friends. All of these things create pots. And this is one of the powerful things. When I start talking about this with kids and teach this to kids, this question begins the process of inviting them to see themselves in the metaphor. They're now seeing how this can begin to apply to their lives. So we acknowledge, all these challenges, and you've acknowledged some of the most difficult ones: substance abuse, mental health challenges, lack of affordable housing. We have major, major challenges that contribute to these pots that kids are stuck in. So one thing we'll ask when we teach this concept of the crab mentality, we want our kids to imagine different roles within the pot. Are we the crab that's pulling other crabs back in, or are we a crab that's trying to help others out? What role are we playing within this pot that we're in? What do you think about this? Let's process this just briefly in the chat. How do friends or others affect us in both positive and negative ways? Because one of the key elements of this that comes up, one of the places that the crab mentality really becomes front and center, is through cases of peer pressure. So just briefly describe, how friends can affect us for good or for bad, and positive or negative. Joanna points out we don't want to be alone. Oftentimes there's this element of, I just want to be with a group. I love that, Keith. They're either energizers or vampires. Great visual to go along with that. So we'll process through that. We want to help our kiddos identify people that want to see them climb out. Now, keep in mind, I'm going through at a very quick pace. With this type of visual metaphor, you can break this in, down to oftentimes like 2 full lessons worth of discussion material, because you can really go deep, especially as you're starting to apply it to the lives of your kiddos. This is a really important question, and I would love to process this with you all for just a minute. Think about your kiddos and your clients that you're working with. What are some of their reasons for staying in the pot? Why might somebody be inclined to stay in that pot? There's some crabs that voluntarily stay within that pot. I've stayed voluntarily in certain pots that I've been in. Could be security, no positive support network outside. It's familiar. It's what we've learned. It's all we know. We might be really afraid. If I get out of this pot, who's going to support me? My friends are here. Even though they might be friends I get in trouble with, I at least have friends here. Traditions, I can't see beyond the pot. Sometimes I'm afraid of change, or I don't want to be different. In a lot of cases, we might be working with kiddos and encouraging them to do things where they might be the first person in their family to do it. They might be the first person in their family to graduate high school, or to consider college, or to consider pursuing a career outside of the community that they've grown up in. All of these things can contribute. And so I think that's a significant piece to process, because there's sometimes some real logic to why people may willingly stay in those pots. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is prepare kids and strengthen them to be able to withstand adversity that can come along with trying to get out of the pot. We want to process with them, what will my future like if I don't get out? Help them visualize that. Help them identify some reasons for getting out of the pot. Why might I want to get out of the pot? Sorry, I'm going through quick, but I want to make sure I have time to do an object lesson that goes along with this. What will my future be like when I get out? Help them see and visualize a life outside of the pot. If for certain kids, they may have never experienced anything outside of those specific and local pots that they've grown up in. It may literally be all that they know. And so sometimes if we can help them see and understand a world outside of that, that can start to help encourage them to want to get out. Resilient individuals are typically resourceful. They know how to use tools and put tools into practice. What are some tools that I could use to get out? What are some tools and resources that I have that I could use to get out? Now, warning, this is one of the big important pieces that becomes part of teaching this particular learning unit. We need to prepare kids for that attack. Why might somebody get attacked for trying to get out of the pot that they're in? You saw in that video I showed, did you see how quick the one crab jumped over and grabbed it and pulled it back in? This happens to our kiddos. Why do our kids, why do individuals, why do ourselves sometimes? I've been attacked for trying to get out of certain pots. Why does this happen? You may have people that are afraid of being alone. They're afraid of losing members of their community. Sometimes misery loves company. Sometimes it's just hard to see other people be quote unquote successful. There's all these things, but the fact of the matter is, in many cases, when these kids begin to try to climb out of metaphoric pots that they're in, an attack will come. And if they're not prepared for it, they can get pulled in very, very quickly. Now, a lot of times this comes through the form of peer pressure. It can be peers trying to encourage them to do things that maybe they shouldn't do, or do things that may cause harm to them. I have an object lesson that I want to do that accompanies this, that helps illustrate this concept of peer pressure, because I think peer pressure is going to be the most common form for your kiddos to see this crab mentality actually happening in real life. So I'm going to jump over to my my camera now, and I'm going to do a little object lesson to illustrate this this concept of getting pulled in quickly. So I've got here, we're going to use science. I've got here a glass bottle. This is like an apple juice bottle. And then I've got here some hard-boiled eggs. I'm going to use a hard-boiled egg. This looks like a good one. There we go. And as you can see, this warning, do not try this home. That's right. Thank you for the warning. So as you can see, I've got this bottle with a peeled hard-boiled egg. It's there at the mouth of the bottle, and as you can see, it will not fit in the bottle. Now I'm going to show you through science that's right, science meeting SEL. I'm going to show you through science that it's possible to get this egg in the bottle, and then we're going to see if we can connect this object lesson to part of the visual metaphor that I just taught. So to do this, it's going to require some heat, which I just so happen to have. I've got some matches, and then because I live a little dangerous, I'm going to use a puff of rubbing alcohol that's flammable. So wish me luck. I'm going to do a spray here. Boom, one spray of the rubbing alcohol. I'm going to get a match, and I've got fire. Got an egg, and we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, boom. And just like that, we now have an egg in a bottle. So yes, thank you. Applause, applause. Magic, science, and SEL have all come together. Now we need to process this and see if we can connect this object lesson directly to the visual metaphor and the SEL lesson. Oh, now get it out. Peter, I will. I'm going to show you that I can in just a minute, but let's process first. Why do you think the egg went into the bottle after the flame was there? There was the egg did not go into the bottle, but once I introduced the flame, it went in. Any ideas why the egg went in? Yeah, you have some, oh, we got scientists here. So what happens is the heat creates a pressure difference where you have a unique pressure situation where you have negative pressure on the inside, strong positive pressure on the outside, and it pulls that egg in. Cool, huh? How is this activity like peer pressure? How is the science of this like peer pressure? There's a few things that I think we can point out. First of all, where did the egg have to be for this to happen? The egg had to be on top and very close to the heat source. I brought the egg in some Tupperware. If I would have left the egg over in the Tupperware and not near that heat, I could drop matches in there all day and the egg was never going to get pulled in. But when the egg got near the heat, near the mouth, it had to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It got pulled in very quickly. How long did it take the egg to get pulled into that bottle? It was instantly. And that's one of the scary things about this crab mentality and specifically about peer pressure. When we allow ourselves to end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, we can get pulled into negative situations, just like there was negative pressure in the bottle. We can get pulled into negative situations very quickly before we even realize what happened. So we're far more susceptible to peer pressure when we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's a simple example of a science-based activity, an object lesson, that you can connect to your visual metaphor to teach a powerful concept. For example's sake, send me an email, LaShonda. Now, Peter asked, can you get the egg out? It is possible. You have to create reverse pressure. And I'm only going to do this once because I actually don't like hard-boiled eggs. But if you do a quick puff into the bottle, look at that. It creates a different sense of pressure. And I got the egg out of the bottle on the first try. And the hard-boiled egg didn't even touch my lips because I don't like hard-boiled eggs. That is magic, right? All right. So I went through fast, but I showed a visual metaphor to line up with what Cory presented about how visual metaphors teach us. And then I did an object lesson to kind of continue with that concept of state changes to further illustrate. And we got about 100 egg puns in the process, which made it all worth it. Oh my goodness. The dad jokes are flying. I think we're just about out of time. Cory, what would you like to add? You're on mute, Cory.
Nothing. That was so much fun. Goodness gracious. Hilarious. And I love our chat window. No, the only thing I add as just a goodbye, thanks for tuning in, everybody. I think Jason has some good info he's going to put up. I just say, hey, it's summertime. You guys have just had the hardest year ever. Going into next year, you work with a lot of people who are struggling. It's always hard to lift people up if you're not in a sure foundation yourself. So, do some self-care this summer. Take a break, relax some, explore your purpose, your interests, your things that you love, your passions, and then you'll be right back at it. But thank you.
So I'm going to put up some slides if you want further information. Let me just give a couple of, disclaimers on the activity that I did and also talk a little bit about kind of what we covered today. So we presented using our own material. If you have more questions about the material that we shared, reach out to us. This QR code is going to be the best way to get a hold of us and to even see more of our material in action. Regardless of what you're using for SEL, I hope you'll take our approach to heart, talking about the power of visual metaphors and object lessons and processing. All of those come together to really help teach at a deep level. Now, a couple of you mentioned that you may want to do this and you don't know about fire in the classroom. So there's a couple options for you. One, you can always record yourself doing it and just bring in video of yourself and then you don't have actual fire. And then there's some fun walkthroughs of like kids doing this on YouTube. There's some PBS videos that you could always show if you're worried about that. If you can get away with the fire's fun. I just used a glass apple juice bottle. You can also use like a plastic Gatorade bottle. It'll work. You don't have to use alcohol either. I like alcohol because I do kind of like the little mini explosion that comes out the top. But you don't have to. If you don't use alcohol, it goes a little bit slower to build up enough heat to pull the egg in. But it's fun. So that's just one. So we have, like, within our curriculum, we're very activity based. We have about 160 activities that are part of our approach. I just showed you one, and then we always have, for all of our activities, we have processing questions that connect the activity to life. So anyway, I will add my remarks to Cory's and just say, in conclusion, as we finish up, thank you so much. We continue to say it, but it has been such a tough year for so many people, and educators and mental health professionals have personally helped my family make it through this, but also have just been such an inspiration to me. I'm so proud to consider you all colleagues, and so grateful to consider you part of my network of colleagues and really friends. I hear from some of you through email sometimes, and I just really love it and appreciate it. These kids are lucky to have you. You are doing great work, and we really hope that these strategies and these tools will be a great resource to all of you as you continue to help these kids be resilient, finishing out this year and then going into next year. We're going to do these throughout the summer. We hope you will join us. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues about them, but also make sure you take good care of yourself during the summer. Recharge your batteries, go do something fun, do something awesome, do something spontaneous, and get those batteries charged, because next year we all need to come out of the gate strong. We've got a nice slate of upcoming webinars, by the way. We've got some fun guests that are coming in, and I think there'll be some great continued discussion on a lot of different topics. So anyway, thank you all. I'm going to play us out with some music. Cory, you have any final thoughts?
See ya. Thanks for being here.
Okay.